for coming. Today, we're going to talk about human capabilities and the middle game. So basically, we are going to talk about what a human mind can do in the middle game. So I'm not saying openings, I'm not choosing end games. Why? Well, in the opening, you usually know what to play if you learn this opening. If it's something that you don't know, it's already the middle game. And in the end game, it's easier to play because you know some end game techniques, you know principles. There are only a few pieces on the board, so it's easy to calculate. But when it comes to the middle game, the position becomes so complicated. And that's why even by playing not the best moves, but quite tough moves for our opponent, we can make the position so complex so that he can make a mistake and we are going to take advantage of this mistake and win the game. So this is what I'm doing in my own games. I'm not always trying to find the best moves in the position in order to create a piece of art. I'm just trying to outplay my opponent right away in this exact game. And of course, I make mistakes, but at the same time, I choose tough moves for my opponent. And he makes mistakes too. Fine. Please let me know about video and audio quality. Today we don't have many people. Probably it's because we skipped a webinar last week and some could consider that today there is no webinar neither, but there is. Last week I was on a vacation in Uruguay. This is a nice place for vacation in the beach. So well, my family and I spent time in a few historical towns of Uruguay, and then we went to the seaside, to the Atlantic seaside, and well, it's a really nice place to swim. Okay, fine. So let's talk about chess. By the way, do you have any questions? Anything you want to tell me? Um, any suggestions before we start? Is there anybody who attends this webinar for the first time? Well, for some reason, I get some errors on my computer, but it seems that everything is working perfectly well. Hmm. Oh, but not my camera. Okay, fine. Here we are. Fine. So we are going to talk about human capabilities, and that's why this is the first game I prepared for you. It's devoted, well, it's the game taken from Jan Timon Carrier. That was a famous British grandmaster, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe actually he wasn't British, I don't remember exactly. But he was definitely a European one. Okay. So what do you think? What white should do in this position? Look at the position. Well, you see your knight is hanging, the enemy bishop is hanging, and how should you play? Okay, so your options are knight g5, knight b5 as well. Interesting. Rook d1 or e5. Well, let's discuss them all. So first of all, knight g5. Well, I don't see the point of doing this move because they can simply capture on c3. And then what then? We are not threatening to take, so on h7 we can take on f5, but this pawn becomes so dangerous. So what else do we have? Knight b5. Knight b5 is interesting. I think this is a move that deserves attention. Queen moves. You saved your knight, and you're about to take there. But if you take there, you lose only two. So maybe e5 after that, and then knight d4. Well, looks interesting. However, well, you are threatening to take because then you'll be attacking this bishop too. Then bishop takes, you have your bishop hanging. Okay, e5 at the start. I think the simplest way is just to continue with a takes b4. Queen takes b4 and rook a2. So defending here, keeping attacking here and there. Okay, the other move to talk about was rook d1. And it seems that rook d1 is a mistake. Who can tell me why rook d1 can be a mistake here? What do you think? Because of b takes c3. That's right. Because of b takes c3. They take on c3. We can take their queen, but after this move, we experience issues. So in order to stop it, we have to retreat with our pieces. So probably this. But if so, then knight takes e4. They are threatening with this, and these pawns are so dangerous. Even the bishop joins the place of action. So that's why rook d1 fails. Jan Timon played e5. Why did he play so? Well, this is definitely a mistake, but at the same time, this move leads to uh, serious complications. Well, look at the ratings. Jan Timon had 2645 and his opponent was 300 points lower. That's why he definitely wanted to play for a win. And for such purposes, he has to confuse your opponent, making the position very complicated. So that's why e5. What to play? What would you play here for black? B takes c3. That's right, actually. Thank you for your suggestions. It's B takes c3. B takes c3, E takes d6, and C takes b2, threatening to promote. Rook moves there. Well, to d1 is possible too, but if the rook moves to d1, then it's c3 coming, and then c2 with a tempo. So rook to e1, c3. So here, black thought that he is almost winning. And white tries to stop these pawns with queen b4, which is quite logical. So neither c2 nor b1 can be played. Well, b1 can be played, but then white sacrifices exchange and the c pawn can be stopped. So black definitely doesn't have enough compensation for the queen. But knight d5, this is the strongest move. However, queen b7. And this is where, well, it's an attack here. I don't think that the a7 is hanging because these two are so dangerous. That's why, what do you think here black should do? Okay, knight b6 is interesting. This is probably the simplest way to defend the position, but knight b6 misses a very important tactical strike that I'm going to show you. Okay, well, you can suggest different moves, and let's now discuss knight b6. Which tactical strike white has? Well, c2 is a better move, right? C2, yeah, C2 is a better move. By the way, guys, if you participate in our webinar for the first time, can you please let me know which country you are from and what's your rating? You're either FIDE, ELO, or just an online rating like chess.com, Chess. Knight f4 is a move also. Okay. Yeah, knight b6 blunders. Why so? Because you can play bishop d3 and initiate blockade. Some may consider that the bishop is hanging, but it's not, because if so, you have queen c8, knight takes, and d7. Now, white threatens to promote this pawn with two ways, d8 and d takes c8. So white promotes first and most likely wins. For example, c2, take, check, bishop here, and 95. Why? Because if now you promote, I can take, and it's completely fine. So if black decides to promote, they have to promote with this move. But after 93, we successfully stop the pawn and we have extra rook. So that's why knight b6 is a mistake. Knight f4 makes more sense. But then bishop d1 and you stop this move. And here I don't think that you can play this. Well, actually you can, but then this is a kind of a double attack. c2, let's say, queen takes f7, king h8, bishop takes c2. And what? Well, and well, probably knight e2 is the best move. But if, let's say, something natural like that, no, like that, because the queen is hanging, then there is a backrank mate. So knight f4 is not a problem. But c2 should be played in this position. And with c2, they are able to win. White continued with d7, finally sharpening the position. So what do you think here black should do? So it's so complicated this time. White threatens to promote, white has extra queen, black threatens to promote in two ways, with c1 and with b1 both. Okay, bishop d7. I think bishop d7 is a nice move, but bishop d7, queen d7, and you have your pieces hanging. How would you progress after bishop d7, John? I actually think that bishop d7 makes a lot of sense. Knight b6 again. You mean here on knight b6? Yeah, knight b6 would work. I agree with you. Then you promote. But actually, you can promote right away. There is nothing wrong with it. How do they continue? If they just take, you promote a new queen, so it's completely winning. If they take here, you also promote. Yeah, it's a completely winning position. So bishop d7 works. Rook d8 would work too. Queen d5 and then c1, and you win. In the game, black decided to play rook f8. So he was so confused with this sharp position. So he made this mistake. And after queen d5, so here, for example, c1 fails already. c1 fails because it's d8. Now, how to play? Well, rook d8. Well, because if b1, for example, then you can capture there, and then just queen d1. Why queen d1? Because we are taking the enemy queen, and at the same time, if they take, we exchange our queens and save the one which is hanging at the moment. So d8, okay, so c1 doesn't work, but b1 works. b1, this move, and in this position, rook d8, bishop f8. And this position is equal because it seems that white has to sacrifice the rook in order to stop the pawn. Why the rook? Because if, let's say, they retreat then, like that, it's here. And what they have to do is just to repeat the position and then go back. So it's a draw. Well, bishop f6 makes some sense here. Okay, so rook f8, and after queen d5, the position becomes equal. In the game, black played this move, bishop d7. How would you react? Bishop d3? Right, it can be bishop d3. With bishop d3, you can stop these pawns, because if b1, you can take on b1. And this is definitely winning. If c1, then you stop the b1 pawn, so you can take on d7. This is exactly what happened in the game, and white realized that they have extra knight in this position, but this pawn cannot be promoted. So rook b8 was the last option, but queen a7. Now, what would you suggest for white? For black, sorry. What do you think? So black can actually play b1 this time. How does it work? They are protecting here. And if you take on b8, they take. Then rook c1. And it seems like a draw, right? Because knight, rook, and pawn can compensate the queen. And if bishop b1, which I think is better, then this move fails. How does this move fail? If this move is played, of course, this is a blunder, but you can play this, bishop goes to f8, and just bring your queen. So you're pawn up at the moment, and you're threatening to take on b1. So what they have to do in this position is to do what? A mass exchange? No, there is no mass exchange because you capture with a knight. They may take on a3, but then you take on b1. And if they save the queen, you take here and still win. So that's why they have to capture with the queen, and this queen is poisoned. But then just g3 and you're a pawn up. I think that Jan Timon would win such a game with extra pawn with no problems, especially against a lower rated player. Rook d8 was played instead. That was another mistake. So queen a6 defending it. Bishop d4, rook f1 defending here. Bishop goes to c5, a4. So this pawn cannot be promoted. Bishop b1, finally we blockaded it, and rook e1 cannot be played. We still have a knight. They played h5. I don't think it makes sense, but h4. an escape square, and it also stops any activity on the king side. So bishop a3 is supporting the queen, queen b5, rook c8, and white is now playing for a win. They successfully blocked the b pawn with their bishop. They have a pass pawn and extra knight in this position. So after a7, black resigned. Let's quickly do a summary of what happened in the game. Well, Jan Timon played actually a bad move, but this is a bad move only from a computer's point of view. So if black if it's a computer playing with black pieces, then the computer would defeat him without any problems and so quickly. But for a human player, especially if you know that your opponent is not as good with tactics as you are, then you can play so to make the position complicated. And he is more likely to make a mistake. However, when you make such a move, you take a lot of risk. But you have to take a risk if you want to play, if you want to win a game. So very often your decisions in the game should be based on the capabilities of your opponent. And that's why I suggest to know your opponent before you start playing the game with him or her. How? Well, you can check his or her rating. You can check their games. You can try to figure out what they usually struggle with. For example, is your opponent good with tactics, or how he is good with positional play? What about his game technique, and so on. For example, if you're playing against youngsters, I would recommend to pass the game to the end game, because youngsters are usually not familiar with end-game technique because of a lack of experience. However, they usually are really good with tactics. But I'm good with tactics too. So it's either an end game or a tactical play. Depends on how strong my opponent is. If his rating is, let's say, 24 and 100, and he is a young player, then I would prefer to play the end game in order to show my knowledge of the end game techniques. So knowing your opponent will help you a lot. And if you see that your opponent is not as good in complex positions, you should make it sharp, make it more complex, so it's tougher for your opponent to take a decision. But if, well, understanding of your opponent's capability brings chess and your chess level to the next level, actually. Your chess performance to the next level, because this is how you can use different tools to outplay your opponent. Okay, let's talk about the next example. So it was a strong grandmaster, Yan Nepomniachtchi, playing against an international master, Yuri Mishkov. The position is equal. It's actually a famous position. It's a theoretical position. It was English opening play, the most classical way, without d3 move, but with b3 already played. So it's completely fine. And what else I can say about that game? That was a team championship. And Nepomniachtchi was playing on the board 4. So that time he wasn't the best Russian player, and he was playing for Team Russia 2 on the 4th board. And his task was actually to collect points. That's why playing for a draw, well, first and the second board are playing for a draw. The third and the fourth are trying to do their best to win the games and score points to let the team to win the whole match. So that's why, even with black pieces, he should score, especially when he plays against a lower rated player. But if here black plays slowly, white can equalize the position and well, simplify and probably end the game in a draw. So what do you think? Which plan here black may choose if black wants to win with black pieces? F5 to pressure the center. So I think that F5 would lead to D3. Well, definitely with such a move, you want to play 4. So that's why That's why they would react with this move. So, well, yeah, this is how classically we should play against English opening. So maybe not f5 right away, but castle first, then bishop e6 and f5, or f5 first, then bishop e6. So castling to either side. Well, castling to the queen side is risky. The c file is already open, and there is a long-term pressure on c6. So castling to the king side makes more sense. H5, yes. So H5, yes, something like that. But if you play H5, what do you expect? Exactly, H4. And the attack is actually stopped. That's why Jan Nepomniachtchi starts with G5, which stops this. And G4, in order to stop such an attack, is not playable. So bishop b2, logical, but g4. Well, this would be a little slow because of h5 and still the idea of playing g4. So h3 only would provoke opening the position through the h file on the h file and then a future attack through the h file. That's why bishop b2, g4, chasing the knight away, and h5. So that was a kind of a psychological attack. Usually black doesn't play like that, but with such aggressive play, he may provoke white to not take advantage of lag and development of black pieces and may succeed with the attack. So knight d3, h4, knight goes to a4. It looks logical to fight for the c5. And well, this exchange on the one hand distracts the pawn, but on the other hand, opens the files to attack on c6 and to attack on b7. And also a5, a6 can be played. But later it did happen in the game. Also, e5 is under attack. If e5 is under attack, then he first plays f6 just to support this pawn. Rook c1, attacking there, but h takes g6 first. What would you do now? So white has a choice. Which pawn do they have to take? Who is the f2 pawn, you mean? So h takes g3 keeps your pawns together. I mean, you create fewer pawn islands, which is recommended from a positional point of view, but it opens the h file and becomes this attack much stronger. That's why taking with the f could make sense, especially because the rook can defend h2 if needed. It also plays on the f file and partially can attack f6. For example, knight takes a4, b takes a4, then what? Centralize? Then just a5, threatening with a6. So a6 should be played. And what do you think about this position? How white should continue? They have bishops active enough, and they're definitely better developed. Castling to the queen side takes a lot of tempi. Castling to the king side is so risky. So what do you think how white can continue this time? There are several ways to play. Let's suggest something at least. Well, knight c5 to activate. I agree. So then there should be an exchange because b7 is under attack. The knight is also doing a lot. e3 can be played to chase this knight away. So take, bishop e6. Well, you can take on b7, I think. Or you can try something else. Maybe queen a4 makes more sense. Queen a4, c6, you take on d4, pawn takes, and look at this position. Well, these pawns all are weaknesses. You see here, for example, a queen exchange is impossible because if the queens are exchanged, f6 is lost. So this queen on d8 supports the whole position. But after pawn takes, look, queen d7, no, because f6 is hanging. Queen e7, no, because queen d4 is hanging. So how to continue development? Even castling queenside is almost impossible. Also, instead of bishop c5, just a simple move bishop e4, threatening with bishop g6. And f5 here fails. Why does it fail? Well, you can just play this move, and after this, it's obviously queen a4, threatening to take on d4. If knight goes back, well, let's decide. Well, by the way, which move would you play here? There are two options, and both are good. Yeah, well, I agree with John. It's rook c6. It's definitely better. You can play rook c6. Why? Because once they take, you take with a queen, and this is a fork. They can block with a bishop, which is natural, but you can take this bishop, and then if queen takes, nobody defends this rook on a8. So, so white would probably win if he took with the f pawn, but he took with the h. And that was a mistake. Now black tries to take advantage of the h file open. So bishop to, I mean, pawn takes, bishop e6. They can take on c6, right? But it is a blunder. If so, it can be queen d5, for example, or bishop d5, threatening checkmate and threatening this rook. Okay, so Peter thinks that before g5, black should have castled to the king side or to the queen side. Well, no. If you initiate the attack with g5 and h5, in order to open the h file and take advantage of that, you have to keep your rook there. Castling to the king side will be so slow. Keeping the king in the center is risky, but provides you with this tempi that you may require in order to succeed with your attack. Because, well, we can talk about it a little bit later once we finish the analysis of this game. So taking with the rook makes more sense, but then still this, and after bishop c6, we just simply move the king, because this is so terrible. Well, white can defend their position with f3, but they don't have any extra material. Well, just a pawn. Take, pawn takes. How to play? Well, I like queen g8. I like bishop c4. Maybe rook. Well, actually, maybe this, and if king g2, oh, it's bishop h3 also. Yeah, e4. Yeah, e4 may work too, but you should be accurate with e4 because e4, I doubt if, well, take, and maybe they can. No, there is 95. I don't think it works, but queen f3 simplifies the position. So you may not win. So rook c6 doesn't work. That's why they continue with knight c5, bishop takes, rook takes, and queen e7. The queen goes to h7. So this is where white decided to sacrifice on c6. Again, the position is complex. The attack on the king side looks dangerous. That's why white decides to take such a decision, which wasn't actually promising. B takes, and well, if they take, it's which move? King f7, king d8, or something else? What do you think? King d8 to keep the h file for the opening. No, king d8, then he takes. Queen h7, but it's not checkmate. Maybe you can try this move, but it seems that they can escape here. Oh, no, bishop f6, so it's a blunder. But yeah, bishop f6. King f7, then they take on e8, and then what? You take with a rook? Well, you have, well, it's a playable position, but are you sure it's winning for black? Looks like not. Both moves, king d8 and king f7, are mistaken. Instead, the best is this. And if now they take, you first play queen h7, and after, let's say, rook e1, you play c6, blocking the queen, because now you threaten to checkmate with queen h1. And this is a winning position. For example, f3 or f4. Now let's say f3. f3 is a blunder too. They both are blunders. So this, then what can you do? Take there and then bring the bishop to the attack. Yeah, probably this is the simplest way. So because of the ability of playing c6, you are winning. That's why here bishop d7 was the best move. If they take, you can take with your queen, you can take with your king, doesn't matter, but you have extra material and this is a winning position. That's why white realized it and didn't capture on c6. They played queen c2. However, their position is already worse. Rook d8. So sacrificing there, but not sacrificing the rook. Take king f7. Rook c1, trying to let the king to escape. Queen d6, and we play positionally. So here, black already has extra exchange. There is only one pawn as a compensation, but they also combine this material activity with the attack on the king side. So d3, bishop d5. How does it work? Well, if they take on d5, it's queen d5. They can take on c7, but what's the purpose? Because after rook d7, there are two threats simultaneously. That's why in this position, they play just f4 move. Oh, and then after g takes a3, he simply resigned. Why did he resign? So this, queen takes, rook takes, and rook d3 is just a winning endgame. So f3 and g3 is hanging. So this move, take, well, there is nothing to talk about. You just invade the enemy territory and capture these pawns located on the light squares. So bishop d5, no, because I can checkmate with rook h1. No, the queen is not required. So this is how the game ended. Let's go back to the beginning and let's discuss the concept of okay, what if e4? Okay, let's go back and answer this question first. E4 in which position? In this position, e4. Well, it's still a losing position, right? So queen takes, rook takes, then rook takes d3, rook c7, king g6. Well, it's still losing, so this is coming. And actually, another threat is check king g2, rook h1 in order to bring the second rook to h2 with mate. After trading bishops, take e4. Well, queen d3, take rook d7. Yes, but you can do so, and you probably are not checkmated then, but it's a losing position anyway because of lack of material for white. So let's now answer let me explain the concept. So castling king side doesn't make sense because if you open the H file, there is no rook and your attack becomes limited. That's why doing this probably makes more sense. This is what I would, for example, play. But then how can he continue in this position? Rook c1 at least. He can also try d4, opening the position. But let's say rook c1 first. You castle queen side, and they continue with what? With this move, attacking on e5. Well, a6 fails. a6 fails because of rook c6 at least. Instead, there is also attack on c7 if we get rid of this knight. So after this move, you have to play f6, but then he sacrifices. You cannot take with your queen, it's a fork. You have to take with a pawn. And then knight takes h7, king goes to there. And in this position, you can take on e5, right, with this knight. So you're threatening the queen. That's why this. Then knight c6, and you still have a strong attack here. It's black is +2, but this +2 can be won with just this simple move. I'm not sure that you should do it. Probably you should increase the attack, increase the pressure by playing queen c2. So, but even if not, let's say in this position, instead of rook c1, what if I play positionally, let's say d4, attacking e5? e4 is not playable. E takes d4 is playable, but then after knight b5, I take it with my knight. So let's say what move you play? Castle or bishop f6? Okay, then knight bd4. Knight d4, knight d4, the bishop is under attack. The c7 becomes vulnerable. If you decide to castle, at least I can capture on e6. So queen takes e6 and queen c2. Look at this position. Black doesn't have any attack at all, but white still has. Well, maybe you can say that it's fine, but well, yes, it's not losing for black, but it's definitely more favorable for white because of the power of this perfect bishop. So, Peter, you see, with this plan, you could spend a lot of tempi that are required to initiate attack, which would force white to defend his position instead of doing any counter attack in the center or on the queen side. So that's why doing g5 right away deserves attention. It's not the strongest way to play, but at least it's a playable move, especially if you are playing against someone who is not as strong as you, and especially if you need to score at 1 point. So I wouldn't play g5. Well, actually, maybe in the blitz game, I would play g5 too. Well, it can be this, bishop b2, then let's say bishop e6, and then they play d4, and this position is equal. So knight b5. Here you can play bishop d5, and after they take, there will be an exchange of these bishops and no pressure on the queen side. So this is how I would play if I were playing against a strong player. But if I play against someone who is 300 or 400 lower rated than me, I would consider g5, definitely. Okay, fine. The next example. What else I want you to remember? So when you play the middle game, you have to combine your strategic ideas with tactical opportunities and tactical complications in order to provoke your opponent make a mistake. Let's say if you have a chance to choose a position with small positional advantage, but you know that your opponent is completely fine with such a position and knows what to do. So, for example, you see that he has an obvious plan, but your position looks better because your pieces are more active. You probably shouldn't choose it. You should choose something more complicated where your skills are stronger. So if you're a tactical player, sharpen the position. If you instead a positional player and know how to maneuver, keep it closed and try to improve your pieces and then open the position. A lot depends on your playing style and the playing style of your opponent. So what is recommended in order to improve your skills is to analyze games played by strong grandmasters against weaker players. For example, when a grandmaster plays against candidate master, you can choose the opening that you play, set the position, for example, the first 7 or 8 moves. Then you can search in a database such a position and use a filter. For example, a grandmaster was playing with that color that you usually get this position. with. And then let's say one of the players is grandmaster, the second is not, and then you get a list of the games where grandmaster in the position that you are likely to get outplayed a weaker player, and you see what ways he did it. How did he take advantage of his better skills in that position? Which plans did he come up with? So this will help you to perform better in the openings that you learn, as well as to come up to understand the plans which are common for such positions, and depends on this knowledge in your game against a concrete opponent. You can choose a plan which suits your skills best and is most uncomfortable for your opponent. Okay, let's take a look at this position. Well, it was Emmanuel Lasker playing against Zygmunt Taras. White pieces are currently well placed, right? So everything in the center, they have the pawn in the center, they have more space, but it's black to move, and black requires to develop the queen side. Also, the d7 is a temporary position for the knight, so the knight has to move there. But where? So Lasker starts with weird moves, by the first glance at least. He plays rook c5, well, chasing the queen away, but the rook on c5 isn't a well-placed piece. Queen b3. Now b7 is hanging, so he plays knight b6. Well, b6 again is also not a very good position for the knight, but for now it works. f4, queen f6, improving the queen, attacking there. Queen goes to f3 to support. Rook e8, centralizing the rook. Everything is logical except this maneuver. Now c3. So b4 is coming, and the rook will be in trouble, so that's why a5. Here, we can definitely say that white has advantage in development. What do you think is the most logical plan for white? A3, B4. Okay, so, well, A3 is a mistake because after that it's A4 and B4 can be never played. That's why if you want, you should start like that. B3, A3, B4, or just B3 and then B4. Or, well, B4 right away. No, take rook C4, taking both. No, B4 right away, definitely not. So, John, if you are suggesting some queenside activity, then you play like Zygmunt Taras. However, he didn't play well, at least in that game. So open position, Brian. Okay, let's open the position. How do you suggest? No, I mean, how do you suggest to do it? So, well, d5, e5. So d5, e5. So it doesn't open the position and allows white to grab more space. g5. Oh, g5 is interesting, actually. I didn't consider it. But you are suggesting the plan for black. I'm asking what white can do. Well, let's say, let me play a random move. Let's say b3, which was played in the game, and then your plan with g5. And rook f1 probably. So they are about to take and pressure f7. You can take yourself, but after that, looks like this is more a weakness, and your knight, the white knight, gets the f5 as a very strong point from which he can attack h6 as well, together with the rook actually. So what white should do? Well, the most logical here is rook d3, rook goes to e3, and then at some point play e5, which opens this diagonal. Well, maybe allows to exchange queens, something like that. So white has to play positionally. White has to play positionally. Instead, as Lasker originally wanted, White thought that, well, this rook is not well placed. That's why we can definitely try to play against this rook's position. So try to attack it, try to trap it, or try to at least take advantage of this weirdly placed rook. And that was what Lasker was hoping for. If white played logically and centralized his pieces and then played e5, creating a strong pawn there, grabbing more space, then black would probably get a worse position and could lose the game. But if white is provoked to attack this rook, then black has chances to play for a win. So b3 was played. He does a4, and the game continues with b4, attacking this rook. Well, it's a kind of inaccuracy. Why? Because the rook already occupies this square. Instead, it could make sense to let him take and then play through the a file at least. But b4, rook c4, g3 reinforces the position. Rook goes to d8. Now rook e3, probably he still wants this idea, or maybe he just protected on c3 in order to move this queen away. But it's already too late. Black gets a counterplay. Which counterplay I'm talking about? Who can find it? Oh, rook takes d4. I don't see the point. If rook takes d4, it's c takes d4. Okay, thanks to Georgios. I think you're right. And thanks for sending it as a private message. No one else can see it. So let's wait for more answers. Okay, no more. Oh, just not sure. Okay, yes, it's c5. Thanks. John and Georgios are correct. It's c5. How does it work? Well, they played knight b5 in the game because they wanted this rook to be in a difficult position, but I'll show you what happened then. Okay. Hi, Zamfir. Thanks for joining. Well, what should be played? If this logical move, then, well, if you take so, you let him play e5. But you can take with a rook, and this pawn becomes the object of the attack, while your knight has a chance to go to c4. So that was the best move for white to play, but black would obtain a very strong counterplay and potential chances to play for win. What happened in the game? It happened, knight b5 happened. So c takes b4, and then white made another mistake. But I think he was provoked to make such a mistake. If, let's say, he takes there, which is natural, then this move. And he's down a pawn, the position is losing. But he played rook d6. Well, is it obvious what he had in mind? He cannot take with a knight, because if he takes with a knight after e5, it's an exchange of rooks with checks, and then the queen escapes. So black has extra knight. That's why it's rook takes d6, then rook takes d6, and now e5. What then? I mean, what now black can do? Because if they just retreat with the queen to, let's say, d8, then knight d6, and it looks okay. Knight d6, rook takes there, rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes. White is completely fine then. What if queen e5? Okay, well, yeah, what if queen e5? If queen e5, it's, no, I want to take with a fork. Of course, I understand that there is a check. King goes to g2, then it's rook, queen a2. Okay, so queen goes there, queen takes, king takes, and rook c3. Yeah, it's, no, not rook c3. Pawn takes c3 fails, right? Okay, it's b3. Rook c3 works, but doesn't provide black with much advantage. It's b3. How does b3 works? Knight c4, knight c4. And if you stop it, I can actually continue with b2. And if rook b1, it's knight d2. So you have to bring the king, but after knight e3, I promote and win a rook for that pawn. So that's why queen e5 would be actually a nice idea, right? But there is even a better move. Can you find it? What do you think? Rook takes on f4. Yeah, thanks. It's rook takes f4. That's right. How does it work? Well, first we attack the queen. So if they take on f6, we can take the queen. They have to take our rook. And then we b3. No, no, the rook is hanging. So maybe check first. Actually, rook d5. c4 is not playable. And if they do so, then we can deliver a check and continue with b3, winning the game. Right. So that's why here they took on f4. But queen g6 check, which now allows us to move the rook with a check. So if queen g2, it's rook d1. If queen g3, it's still rook d1. So king moves. Now rook d1 is not playable. But queen b1 is, which forces the king to go to g2. Rook d2, they block, but queen e2, adding pressure here. And then it's a completely lost position. So check, king g3, and simply a3. There is nothing they can do. So e6, this is what he tried. Maybe he can capture on b7, but then this. No, then this, right? So king moves and queen b5. So e6, but queen e1 and queen takes e6 with a check, so it's a completely losing position. The rest of the game is not so important, so let's just quickly go through the end. Only this is where white resigned. So again, look at this position, the original one. It seems that it's favorable for white. I'm not saying that white is much ahead, but it's definitely better placed pieces. And because Lasker wants to win, he plays a tough move. He plays rook c5, which has a quite a different conceptual idea. With rook c5, he puts the rook to a weird place where the rook is likely to become the object of the attack. But with this move, he also provokes white to attack such a rook with pawns and at the same time provide black with a counterplay. And his plan worked. So here white played well, and if only they just reinforce their position with something like that and they continue with e5 later in the game, it would work for them pretty well. But if instead white tries to take advantage of the position of the rook, he cannot trap it, but he provides black with a strong counterplay like that, which makes c3 a weakness. If he wants to play so, he probably needs to support b4 first. And if now c5, then knight b5 right away, and after this, it's just possible to capture. Okay, so yeah, maybe Lasker played more psychological chess more than other players. Also, Judith Polgar said that chess is 50% psychology. So probably it does make sense to look at her games too. Fine. Our next example is this game. Look at this position. White has a strong pawn center. And well, black attacked it, but without any success. And that's why he decides to play for a win with e5 to provoke the exchange. The exchange happened. Now, well, taking with a pawn, bishop h2, queen e7 would still offer a playable position for black, but they are trying to play for a win with knight e5. What do you think you should do? What comes to your mind? How you can take advantage of that? So this is an example where such a weird play led to serious problems. Alexander Alekhine played really well. So the pawn on d6 is a weakness. So probably if Alan believes that d6 is a weakness, then it does make sense to what? To retreat the bishop to e2? But then knight c6 and they are about to play d5. I don't think you can stop it. Taking with a knight like John suggests and then playing this, assuming that queen e7 will be played, I think they just play queen c7. And now knight e4 fails. Alexander Alekhine took with a bishop. Why? Because he understood that this is a weakness and it's possible to continue with knight g5 and threaten it. So now in the game it was played bishop e6, which only ruined the black's position. But let's take a look at other moves like rook e7, for example. If rook e7 is played, what would you continue here? Queen b3, interesting, yeah. Queen b3 is interesting, but queen c7, so they are able to defend. And after they chase your knight away, they can continue with bishop e6 and exchange the bishops in their favor. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. You are absolutely right regarding knight d4. Why? It's a double attack. Well, you offer to capture the queen as well as this. And if they do so, we can capture, I don't know which rook is better. Maybe this is better. We can capture with this, threatening to invade the enemy territory, as well as capture there, as well as enter d6 and threaten it one more time. So exchanging queens doesn't favor. That's why queen c7. However, how can you take advantage of it already? So queen c7 looks logical. You defend c7 and avoid the queen exchange. Queen d6 is nice. However, I think that they first take on e4. And then they exchange the queens on d6. So it doesn't look promising. But if you play proper move, you win the game. Knight d6. So there is something wrong with knight d6, I think. Knight d6. If h6, you have to capture with this knight, and then this knight can be stuck there, right? So instead, after queen c7, it does make sense to take first, and then simply take advantage of this pin by playing this move or that move. I don't know which is better, but I definitely see that there is no way to defend this rook with anything else, because bishop e6 is not a move. So that's why actually he played bishop e6. He didn't want rook e7 and these complications with knight d4. But this is how he assumes that he has to play with a weakness on e6 and a really bad pawn structure. But look at the white's position. They don't have any single weakness. And look at this bishop, which is stopped. Well, restricted. And even if the bishop goes there, it's still restricted there, while this knight can operate through these squares and invade the enemy territory, as well as attack their weak pawns. So knight d4, knight takes, exchange of the queens, and then knight takes d4, attacking c5. So b6, rook fd1, king f8, king f1, bringing the king, and then c4. Why c4 is required? To stop the bishop, to not let them playing c4 and activating the bishop through c5. I actually think that such a move could be played earlier instead of king f1. So the rest of the game isn't so important. White has a solid advantage and plays for a win. This bishop is not doing anything. Well, let's come up with a plan. What do you think White should do? They played for 40 moves, for 30 moves more, and White finally won, but this is a very easy position to play for a win. The plan here can be rook b3, a5, and a4 and a5, trying to undermine. Ideally, we should exchange on b6 as well as exchange the rooks and then invade the b5 square with our king. Regrouping our knight and trying to attack this. Or provoking weaknesses on that side and invading the enemy territory with our knight. Fine. So a4, this, a5 was played. So, well, doing this means that we can invade, and if the rooks are exchanged, it's c5 and e6 both are lost. So let me show you. King c6, you can take, then you take on e6, and then your knight escapes. King d6, for example, knight f8, g5. I don't know, just what? King. Yeah, the king just moves there. It's a, well, actually, let's just play b3 first. I think we can capture this pawn later. And in case of this, it's knight to b7. So b3, otherwise they play a4. Fine. So this is the plan. This, and now the rook invades the enemy territory. It's possible to exchange the rooks, but with rooks on the board, your rook can go there while the enemy rook goes to a2 probably. But if you bring the king to c2 or king c3, it's not promising for black. So this. Well, I don't think we should discuss it. It's more about endgame. But it's a simple position to play for a win for white. Knight b5. Now the rook cannot do much. So f3, and they are in a Zugzwang. The bishop cannot move. So king d7, rook b8 attacking this. And it's almost over. So king c6, another check. And the king goes there, after which we can exchange the rooks. But if the king goes to b7, it's knight d6 simply. So king a6, it's a checkmate. If king a7, let's try something like that and win the bishop. So king d7, check. The rooks are no, the rooks can be exchanged, and then you can just win this pawn. However, in the game it was rook c6, and then you take the pawn on e6, and then white resigned. So look at this moment of the game. So of course it was better to play something like that than queen b6. So bishop d7, rook c8, knight a5, and trying to occupy c4 maybe. But black wanted to play for a win, played this move, which is not a serious mistake, just a very small inaccuracy. But after that, he took with a knight, and that was a serious mistake. So here, in order to play for a win, black took a lot of risk, sharpened the position, and because of that, Alexander Alekhine was able to outplay him. So when you play such moves, when you play the moves which can provoke your opponent to make a mistake, you should understand that you take a lot of risk. And if you see that you're playing against someone strong, then do not take such risk. Instead, play positionally, try to improve your position and come up with your previous plan later in the game, once your pieces are prepared for all that stuff. Fine. So we have one more game to analyze, and I think the last game is the most interesting one. But before we proceed, let me share something and let me ask you a few questions. So first of all, if you enjoy my webinars and you would like to support, you can use this link and donate. So let me share this link in the chat. And I'll quickly show you how it works. So you click this button, then you enter the amount you want to donate, like 10, 15, 20, any amount that you can allow yourself to spend for the webinars. Well, the webinars are free, of course, but those of you who can and who want support, well, you're welcome. I would appreciate it. It would help me to prepare better material. Then you enter your PayPal account, and the money is automatically transferred to my PayPal account. This is how it works, quite easy. What else? I also ask you, let me share. I also ask you to support me on Chessable. If you have an account on Chessable, you see that I was nominated. My last course was nominated as best tactics or calculation course. So I would appreciate if you could vote for me. How? With this link. Just let me share again. With this one. So, for example, you can do like that. Then you, well, oh, it's already closed. Okay, so it's over, unfortunately. Okay, I hope that at least a few people voted for me. Oh, it was closed on January 28th, unfortunately. Okay, anyway, fine. Well, maybe at least I was nominated. well, together with such players like Sam Shankland, for example, Peter Leko. No, others are not so strong. Any chessable courses I would like to mention? Well, I definitely recommend you to, if you don't have access, I would definitely recommend you to purchase my latest course, Train Your Tactical Vision. I'll show you. So Train Your Tactical Vision. So this one, it's not on sale, but I would recommend you to wait until it's gonna be on sale and then purchase it. This course, it really helps to understand tactics and be able to realize where you can, you should start looking for tactics. So for example, if you enter inside the course, you see that I'm explaining some tactical signals that you should know and that you should notice during the game in order to start looking for a tactical combination. And another suggestion, well, this is a very long course. So it's about 40 hours. So I kindly recommend you to purchase it and work on it. It really helps to get better in tactics. Well, what else I wanted to show you here? Well, tactical motives are covered, but there is also a chapter which teaches how to create tactics, even if the position is calm. Also, there is homework. As for my other course that I would like everyone to pass, it's this one. I think it's underestimated power up visualization. So it helps to, oh, it's on sale actually. No, it's a video upgrade on sale only. So it was shortlisted for the best tactic course in 2023. So I also recommend it. It can improve your ability to visualize the position when you calculate. So for example, if you can visualize the position after calculating 3-4 moves, after passing this course, you will be able to calculate to visualize the position after 5, 6, 7 even. So this this course contains of some exercises, some typical mistakes that chess players do make when they calculate lines. So I also recommend it. I have another question, actually. So, well, we are going to do webinars on Sundays, as usual, of course, with no doubts. But I have a question whether you would like to see some other content that I produce, what I can suggest. So would you like, for example, watch a stream where I explain, where I'm doing Puzzle Rush? Like that. Are you interested in it? Another suggestion is to do puzzles, where I do puzzles and explain it. So how I'm able to come up with the solution like that. For example, let's say Queen C3 was played, what I can do. So here, obviously, it's a knight move. It's a knight move with a discovered attack. I think it's knight G3. Wait. Something happened with, it's knight G3. It's knight G3, well, and then rook F2. Yes, it's knight G3. So then rook F2, and I can win a queen. Knight D4. So we're explaining how I solve puzzles, how I come up with moves. This is the second. Also, we can do a simul if you are interested. And I'm I'm playing in Title Tuesdays every Tuesday. However, well, you should understand I'm not so good in blitz. And if, for example, Hikaru Nakamura wins almost all his games, I usually win 3 or 4 of 11. So I usually score like 4.5 or 5 of 11. So that's why there will be a lot of losing games that you have to watch. But yes, I can stream it too. So please let me know what you would prefer. Puzzle Rush, tactics, doing simuls, and Title Tuesday. Four options. So you can type in the chat what you think you would prefer. Okay, Mark thinks that puzzles, explaining the process, how I come up with candidate moves. Okay, fine. Puzzle Rush, John, and yes, and thanks. What was the last option? Uh, Title Tuesday. Okay, any advice on playing Blitz or managing the clock? Probably. Let's continue with our main topic. Today we have one more game to analyze. So, but I'm still waiting for your answers. Those of you who want to share and who want to also see some different content, you are welcome to suggest. So again, we have a list of Puzzle Rush, puzzles with explanation, Simals, and Title Tuesday, how I play. As for the Blitz, I think I need to improve a little more, and then I probably create a course and then make a webinar of how to play Blitz. Okay, so Zamfir prefers Title Tuesdays. Alan prefers Simals. Okay. And is it fine if you get a notification by email that I'm streaming this or that activity? Actually, I can do it in advance. For example, if I stream Title Tuesday on Tuesday, then on Monday, I'm going to send a notification that this time on Tuesday, I will play in the tournament. And maybe also 15 minutes before start or immediately when I start. Yes, I agree with Tune regarding Puzzle Rush. So puzzles are more educative. Okay, let's continue with this. Look at this position. It's Carlsbad pawn structure, right? So the C was exchanged for the E. Black plays on the king side, white plays on the queen side. White offered the queen exchange. And what do you think? Should black accept this queen exchange or not? No. Can you explain why? Yeah, so no, no, no. Yes, you're right, but why? Exactly, because black is going to play on the king side in Carlsbad systems. The queens are required. Otherwise, you cannot succeed with the attack. For example, if you exchange, then defend b7, they can try to play b4 and open the position and make b7 a weakness. So for the queen side attack, they don't really need a queen. But for the king side attack, you really need a queen. That's why black continues with this move. This move provokes white to win a pawn on a5. So that was a kind of a trick. Black retreated and expected white to capture this pawn. So knight b6, well, the rook cannot go to a7 because of a discovered attack, obviously. But the rook goes there, after which queen e5. And it seems that white has extra material and his position is quite favorable. However, it's not. Why? Because black has a material majority on that side of the board, and he is more likely to succeed with the king side attack rather than white creates any danger with his pawns on the queen side. Knight h4. Potentially attacking the g2, bishop f1, and queen g5 was played. Who can tell me what are we threatening after queen g5? For example, if white continues with b4, what we can do immediately? Well, bishop f3, then g3. So it's not so promising if you play so. Yes, thanks, Zamfir and Georgios. Yes, we are threatening with knight takes g2. And if bishop g2, bishop h3 works perfectly well. If king takes, it's a bit complicated. You sacrifice the piece, but now you can rook e3. Rook e3 is too risky, I think. You can play rook d6. This is one option. Bishop f5 is the second option. The king escapes, which is the only square, because if he goes there, it's checkmate. So he goes there. And then you can take here, of course, but I think just getting the rook to the g file allows you to win. Take. Well, if they take immediately, I don't really see how they defend against rook g6. Maybe with bishop f3, actually, but then knight f6, knight g4, so it's a disaster. This queen is too far and can hardly join the place of action. So that's why white sees it and plays king h1. So now knight g2, bishop g2, there is no bishop h3 move. Knight f6. g3. Saving the pawn on g2. Knight f3. Bishop g2. So, well, if they take, I don't think it favors them. And queen h5. What we're threatening? Of course, h2. That's why the knights are exchanged. But now black is threatening with knight g4. So, for example, if again b4, which is the main plan of white, it's knight g4, and they're in a trouble because they cannot play h3. It's just a blunder. Well, and if they play h4, they blunder there. That's why it's time for white to retreat with his pieces. How to continue after that? Well, doing knight g4 is still very attractive, but then queen g1. Black definitely needs more material. What would you suggest? A rook lift. That's right. So not this rook lift, because the rook can potentially participate in this attack, only 3 or only 1. This rook moves because the d file is closed. King g1, take, and knight g4. But h3, how would you continue here? Looks like the attack is stuck. But you're only pawn down, so for that pawn you have a really strong attack. But how to proceed? Looks like their queen only once cements the pawn structure, and we can hardly do anything. But I'm sure there is a way to proceed, and I want you to find it. Well, 93 is interesting, but 93 pawn takes what then? Well, there is rook f4 move. Rook f6, fine. With rook f6, you're threatening to go there. Well, like gonna play this to defend there. You can play queen f3, king h2. So I don't see how you win, and I'm going to bring more pieces to the defense. How? Well, rook d1, rook d2, maybe like that. No, it's not promising. Not knight there, but knight there. How does it work? If king takes, it's rook f6 and queen f3. If queen takes, it's still the same. And then queen e3. For example, queen e1, you can check, he goes there, then you capture there with a winning attack. The queen has to move, you take on g3, and then these pieces do not help the white king, so the game should be over soon. That's why queen g1, supporting e3. However, when the queen is here, instead of doing queen e3, you can continue with queen e2. It's better. King h1 is the only move. How would you continue then? Rook f2. That's right. It's rook f2 simply. And then you're threatening with queen f3, so they have to resign. Maybe they can try this, but again, it's just a blunder. Well, a queen sacrifice here only works, but this is a losing position for white. Well, a4, just queen f3. Well, after rook f2, they already resigned. So let's take a look at this simple example once again. So with queen c5, white thought that the queen exchange is provoked. Otherwise, if the queen moves away, there is a pawn loss. However, they absolutely neglected the attack of the black on the king side. Not the attack itself, but the attacking potential. So queen f6, knight h4, and queen g5. The attack really becomes so strong then. And queen f6 was a kind of a provocative move. Of course, knight b6 wasn't forced, and instead, in this position, it was better to continue with queen c2, trying to bring the queen to the second rank, defending g2, maybe knight f1, f3, something like that. So let's say this, knight h4, then maybe g3. If knight goes there, knight takes, so queen takes, and then, well, bishop h3 is a threat, but we can just play this, threatening with this. And if bishop h3, bishop f1 is fine. And then these active pieces can be exchanged so that black won't have a chance to play for a win. And, well, the position would probably be still equal. But instead, with this pawn sacrifice, black provoked white to capture such a pawn and could take advantage, and black could take advantage of material majority and the inability of the white pieces to go to the king side in order to support their own king. Fine. So we are done for today. Today we were talking mainly about human capabilities in the middle games and a psychological way of playing chess. So what you can do in the middle game in order to make the position more complex, which will provide your opponent with more chances to make mistake and you with chances to play for a win. But of course, if you make the position complicated, you may make a mistake there too. So you should be ready for that. At least it should be more understandable for you rather than for your opponent. And you can make the position complex not only when you are when you have a higher rating than your opponent. You can make it more complex even if you're playing against grandmaster. Because in a complex position, everyone may blunder or make a serious mistake, even a grandmaster. So in a simple position, you're likely to lose anyway, but in the complex position, you have more chances. So think about it when you play your game, especially over the board. Yes, Mark, I think you are absolutely right. So to understand the potential, we can calculate attacking pieces and defensive pieces. However, we also have to consider and predict the possibility of enemy pieces. I mean, how fast the enemy pieces can join the defense. Well, if let's say this knight was on d3, let's say, the queen could go to e1 and probably they would save the game. If this knight wasn't on b6 but was on c3 or maybe on e5 or could go to e5, it was still possible to save the game. So not only the number of pieces into the attack and the number of pieces into the defense, but the ability of the pieces to quickly join the place of action and defend his own king, their own king. Fine. Do you have any other questions? Well, if not, we are done for today. Next webinar will be devoted to different types of the center and how to play with when you have different pawn structures in the center. So, well, I'll provide you with examples and typical plans. Okay, so you think a part 2 devoted to this topic. Okay, fine, maybe. Well, yeah, let me call it like psychological chess. Let me think about it. Yes, it definitely can be a part of, that can be a topic for one of our future webinars. Okay, fine. So we are done for today. Thank you for coming, and hope to see everyone on next Sunday. Not sure if there will be uh, any activity, any other stream during this week, but next week, yes. This week I'm quite busy. I have to pass a driving exam here in Argentina. Well, I have 20 years of driving experience, but if I want to drive in Argentina, I have to pass a local exam for some reason and get a national driving license. So it's weird, but this is how it is. So thank you for coming. Again, if everyone wants to support, there is a link. Here it is. Fine. So see everyone next Sunday. Bye-bye.